Some bodies of water are not lakes at all, but living things, ancient, watchful, hungry. Lake Superior in northern Michigan is one of them. To the Ojibwe people, she is Gitche Gumee, the Great Sea. They say she never gives up her dead. And on a November night, 50 years ago today, she proved it. On November 10, 1975, the bulk freighter Edmund Fitzgerald, 729 feet of iron and faith, fought her way through a storm that had risen without mercy. 29 men were aboard. They carried iron ore from Superior, Wisconsin, bound for Cleveland to pass through Detroit. But the wind had other ideas. By dusk, the gales screamed across the lake at nearly 60 miles an hour, waves taller than houses. Other ships limped for shelter. The Fitzgerald pressed on, shadowed by the Arthur M. Anderson. At 7:10 p.m., her captain's final words crackled across the radio. "We are holding our own." But 10 minutes later she was gone, swallowed whole by Gitche Gumee. No distress signal, no survivors. Just silence where 26,000 tons of steel had been. For days the Coast Guard searched. What they found were lifeboats ripped apart, oil slicks, and debris scattered across 40 fathoms of cold black water. No bodies were recovered. The lake, true to legend, kept her dead. In Detroit, Cleveland, Duluth, Superior, every Great Lakes town, a strange quiet settled in. We who live by the lakes know that sound, the hush that follows the roar, the reverent stillness when we realize how small we really are. When the ship was found at the bottom of the sea, we gathered at Detroit Mariners Church to ring the bell. 29 times, 29 men lost forever, 29 families ripped apart. A year later, Canadian songwriter Gordon Lightfoot read a Newsweek article about the tragedy. It described the Fitz simply as the greatest mystery of the Great Lakes. Something in that phrase cut him to the quick. Lightfoot, poet of wind, rain, and memory, took up his guitar and in one fevered burst of creation wrote The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. He didn't write a pop song. He wrote an elegy. That haunting minor key ballad begins like a church bell tolling across water. It sounds older than it is. Every verse carries the rhythm of waves and the weight of grief. He gave every man aboard a kind of immortality, not by name, but by the echo of their labor, their laughter, their last watch on a November gown. In another century, sailors sang shanties to keep time and to keep fear at bay. Lightfoot's song is a modern shanty, and, like all the best ones, it can break you in half. Listen closely and you'll hear not only the storm, but the silence afterward, the disbelief of a community that built ships, worked the oar, lived by that water, and suddenly realized how quickly it could take them back. When he performed it live, audiences often stood in complete stillness. No one clapped until the last chord faded, as though applause itself might desecrate the dead. Me, I was 7 years old when the Fitz was lost, and spent 5 decades now watching grown men cry, men who were not seafarers, just Detroiters through and through. The Ojibwe legends say that Gitche Gumee has moods, blue-green serenity in summer, and in November, grim wrath. They believe the lake is a being, not a body of water. And the Fitzgerald's wreck joins centuries of stories told about her hunger. When Lightfoot sang the line, "The lake it is said never gives up her dead," he was not writing metaphor. He was speaking a truth the people of the North Country already knew in their bones. Every November 10th since 1975, Detroit's Mariners Church at the foot of Jefferson Avenue near the river that connects to the Great Lakes holds a service for the crew of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Inside that limestone chapel, the names of all 29 sailors are read aloud. And then the bells toll, one for each man. But in 2023, 2 years ago, they told a 30th time for Gordon Lightfoot, who died 6 months before. The man who made sure none of us would ever forget the Fitz and those who died with her. He gave them something the lake would not: eternity. Today marks 50 years since the storm that took the Edmund Fitzgerald. When we hear that melody in bars, at wakes, on car radios, we pause. We get a catch in our throats, especially when the rain starts to fall sideways. The song belongs to all of us now, the inland sailors, the welders, the truck drivers, and us kids who grew up in Motor City, staring at freighters slipping downriver toward open water. Every generation rediscovers the song and feels that same ache, that sense that somewhere out there the wind still howls across a deck gone silent, that we, too, are connected to those men, because to live near the Great Lakes is to live in the presence of a vast mercurial God who can bless or devour with equal grace. What Lightfoot did was more than write a hit song. He created a memorial you can sing, a monument made of melody, one that needs no granite, no steel, no plaque, no eternal flame, only the sound of a voice carrying their story. In less than 7 minutes, he built a cathedral of water and wind. He captured what so many of us from the Mitt understand instinctively, that tragedy on these waters is never a private matter. It belongs to the whole shoreline. If you stand on the Detroit Riverwalk on a cold November 10th, you can hear the church bells drifting over the water. Each toll feels like a heartbeat, slowing down, echo of names we never knew but somehow recognize. Lightfoot's song plays on the radio, and for a moment, all of Michigan listens together. The lake wind cuts through your coat, and you remember Detroit was built by people who never stopped working, never stopped mourning, and never stopped singing for their own. The Fitzgerald still lies on the bottom of Lake Superior, broken in two. The water is so cold that her paint has hardly faded. Divers say she rests upright, proud even in ruin. Gitchigumi keeps her as she keeps all things, without judgment, without surrender. There's a kind of mercy in that. The lake takes, but it also preserves. And the song does the same. It keeps them alive in the only way it can. In the months and years after the wreck, Gordon Lightfoot directed meaningful support toward Great Lakes mariners, helping establish a scholarship for maritime students in Traverse City, adding to it over the years, and even conditioning later uses of the song on donations to that fund. That song still carries across the straits, across Gitchigumi. It is part prayer, part warning, part gratitude. It tells us that memory is a kind of navigation, that we steer by what we refuse to forget. And so every November, when the gales rise again and the freighters vanish into mist, we remember the Edmund Fitzgerald, the 29 souls, and the man who sang them home. Because in Detroit, Motown, we honor our dead not by silence, but by song. The legend lives on from the Chippewa down, of the big lake they called Gitche Gumee. Lake, it is said, never